Hi, welcome to Clarinet HQ. In this video, I'm going to talk about common causes for having a thuddy tongue when we articulate on the clarinet. So it's very common to run into an issue with actually hearing the tongue hit the reed, okay? And sometimes we call that thuddy. Something that's important to be aware of before we talk about these different aspects of solving a thuddy tongue is tongue position. And tongue position is very important when you play clarinet, so I suggest you watch our High Note Hacks playlist, and that is going to give you a good knowledge base for how to keep your tongue position where it's supposed to be. All right, now there can be different reasons this is happening. Probably one of the most common ones is that you are using too much tongue to articulate. If you are using too much tongue, you can get a thuddy sound. So you want to make sure that you're only using the very tip of your tongue to articulate. And it's only that very tip that moves. So a way to figure out how much tongue is necessary, because it's really not a lot, is you can play a chalumeau C, and you're going to start this chalumeau C with your air, and then you're going to slowly bring the tip of your tongue to the tip of the reed, and it's going to tickle. It might like shake a little bit because it's hard to, it can be difficult to control things that slowly, but you're going to slowly place the tip of your tongue to the tip of your reed, and when the sound stops, that's how much you need to articulate. Okay, so you don't want to go any further than that. So it might sound something like this. So you kind of hear, it's almost like it's stuttering just a little bit, and that's totally normal. Your air is still going when you do this. At all times when we're articulating on the clarinet, your air is still being put through the instrument. And so you're still going to hear a little bit of sound, but the whole point of this exercise is to experiment with how much tongue is actually needed in order to articulate. And you can take that a step further by, once you feel comfortable doing that exercise, using just a very small amount of the tip of your tongue, then you can actually play your chalumeau C and try articulating with as little tongue as possible and listening to what you're playing to hear how, like, what actually makes it sound like you're articulating. And you might get somewhere like, oh, that didn't sound like anything happened. Okay, then maybe use a little more of your tongue. So it could sound like this. And you may have heard that some of those articulations sounded more than others. Maybe you barely hear one. And so again, this is an experiment. The goal is to figure out that if you're using too much tongue to articulate, this is to help you figure out that it's really just a small amount that's needed. Another common reason why we might have a thuddy tongue is that the movement that our tongue is doing inside of our mouths might be too big. Okay, so we already know now that it's a very small amount that's needed to articulate, but now we have to be aware of the fact that it's only the tip of the tongue that actually moves. The back part of our tongue, tongue position, is nice and high, and it's the tip of the tongue that's moving. So if you're using a forward-backward tongue movement when you're tonguing, that's going to be too aggressive, and that can result in a thuddy tongue. So that first exercise that we just did is another great way to make sure that you're only moving the tip of your tongue, right? You keep your tongue position nice and high, you bring your tip of the tongue to the tip of the reed, and you notice that it's really just a very small amount that is moving. It is very common to only have a thuddy tongue when you're playing in the clarion or the altissimo range. Now, a side note here, even if it only happens in the clarion range, you're still probably tonguing incorrectly in your lower range, in your scialimo range of the clarinet. It's just that the clarion and the altissimo are more sensitive to inconsistencies in articulation. And you can do that same exercise that we did on the scialimo C, you can do that with a clarion note. So anywhere from B natural on up. Experimenting with just how little bit of movement there really needs to be, making sure your air stays nice and fast, and that only the tip of your tongue is moving. Okay, if you have questions about any of that or anything else clarinet related, post them in the comments and make sure you subscribe, and thanks for stopping by.